Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare Hare. So welcome all for another topic under this mind management. So we begin with a story of a sage. Some of you might have heard from me before. If not, maybe most of you would be hearing for the first time. And the story goes like this. Long ago, when Hinjawadi was a farmland, when there was no IT park, there was no Blue Ridge, no megapolis and whatnot. So we are going somewhere around 50 years ago, or maybe 30 years ago. So a young boy came here, and there was a sadhu. He came and decided to accept that sadhu as his guru and sought spiritual guidance. And the teacher, the sadhu, taught him everything about spiritual life. And after empowering him with the required wisdom and the techniques on meditation, the sadhu said, well, now I need to move on. I need to go to another place. And he left that place. And now what remained behind was this young sadhu who has no possession of his, and he is sitting or staying right next to the river, and he sleeps on the barren field under the shade of a tree. And the whole day he performs his time in performing meditation. So one day he kind of began to feel a little uneasy about himself. He had so little possession that he only had one piece of cloth for himself. So when he'll wake up in the morning, he'll go to the river, take bath, and when he comes out, the single piece of cloth is all wet. So just to dry that single piece of cloth, he would stand half through the water and let the sun evaporate all the water and dry it up while the cloth is on the body. So one day a friend of his came and he said, well, you know what, you have so little possession because of which you are getting so disturbed. Your meditation is getting affected. Why not you get another piece of cloth? If you will have two pieces of cloth, when you go and take bath, you wash what you wore and you wear the fresh piece of cloth and you hang it up, and by some time that piece of cloth will dry up and you can peacefully perform meditation. How many of you say it's a good suggestion? Agreed? It all starts with the good intentions. So all right, the friend got, because friend suggested, so this young sadhu got another piece of cloth. He has two pieces of cloth. Life seems to be all okay, but suddenly something happened. He came out from river after taking bath. He has put his piece of cloth on the branch of a tree where the cloth is drying, and he sits down in meditation, and suddenly his meditation broke. Why? Because there is apparently a rat, a mouse, which has climbed up that particular branch and is chewing away that piece of cloth. And now the sadhu cannot meditate because his possession is at risk. So he's really disturbed, more disturbed than ever before. So again the friend comes into the picture. I say, hey, don't worry, my dear friend. What's your problem? If you're so much troubled by the rat, get a cat. If you will have a cat, the cat will chase away the rat and you can do your meditation peacefully. How many of you agree is a good suggestion? Raise your hand. Good suggestion, isn't it? आप लोग हंस रहे हो, अभी हाथ नहीं उठा रहे. आपको दाल में कुछ काला नजर आ रहा है. All right. So no problem, he gets a cat and life becomes normal, okay? Again, and he's performing his meditation. But one day his meditation broke now. Why? Because the cat is making a lot of sound. Why? The cat is hungry. Somebody needs to feed the cat. And she's running all around the sadhu, circumambulating the sadhu, meow, 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 and she is disturbing the meditation. Again, the friend enters the scene. He says, what's your problem? Not a big deal. If the cat is hungry, it will make a sound. Get a cow. If you will have a cow, you fetch some milk from the cow, feed it to the cat. Cat would be not hungry. When cat is not hungry, cat is properly fed. The cat will chase away the rat, and your position will be intact. And the goal is meditation. You'll be able to perform meditation. Good advice? Yes or no? I mean, yeah, the problem gets solved, isn't it? The immediate problem is the cat is hungry. the immediate problem gets solved. So the sadhu thought, that's a good suggestion. Why don't I get a cow? He got a cow. So everything seems to be okay. The cow gives the milk. The sadhu feeds the milk to the cat. Cat chases away the rat, and his cloth is intact. His possession is protected, and he's able to do meditation. However, after a few days, again his meditation broke. Now the cow is making the noise. The cow is running all over around him making noise, and now again the friend enters the scene. And this young sadhu is disturbed. He says, "Arey, what's going on?" Now the cow is disturbed. He said, "Of course, you have a cow, but there's nobody to take care for the cow. Get a wife. The wife will take care of the cow will take care of the cat will take care of the rat, and rat will not cut your copin. And your life would be very simple, and you can meditate." How many of you say it's a good suggestion for a young sadhu? Anyways, he's getting a little old, he should get married probably. So fine, the young sadhu, how can he say no to such a proposal? He gets married. So everything seems to be going fine, okay, until one day. And now the wife becomes extremely angry. क्या समझ रखा है? ना घर में खाने के लिए राशन है, ना छत है, ना कपड़ा है. क्या है ये? मेरे पिताजी ने किसी भिखारी से शादी कर दी है. Go get a job. And what the sadhu can do? Sadhu comes back to Hinjawadi, takes up an IT job in some Infosys and CTS, and his sadhutva is lost. Now he has got married, he has a wife, he has a house. The wife takes care, he takes care of the wife. Manager takes care of him, he takes care of the wife takes care of the cow takes care of the cat takes care of the rat. And now he doesn't have only one possession, he has many possessions. And after many months and many years later, now the guru of this sadhu comes back. And when he comes back to the spot where he left him, underneath a banyan tree, now there is a 2 BHK duplex, what do you call this? A big duplex right at the bank of the river, and sadhu is confused. What happened? I left my disciple here, I don't see anywhere. And suddenly the housewife comes out and says, "Yes, Sadhuji, how can I help you?" And the sadhu said, "Well, I left my disciple here." So the lady said, "Oh yeah, your disciple, I'm his wife now. And these are the toddlers, Tinku Pinku, the sons of your sadhu disciple," like that. And the guru was really surprised. What happened? And the disciple comes back late in the day, tired, hungry after 12 hours of job in IT company. He comes back, meets the guru, and Guru asks, "What happened?" He said, "My dear Gurudev, what to do to follow your instruction to do meditation effectively? I was really living a simple life, but a friend of mine gave me a suggestion. If I want to protect my position, or if I want to do meditation properly, get another position." Like that, he told the whole story. And now he ended up, the goal for which he sat down is entirely lost. So, what started with the innocuous, harmless suggestion ended up taking him entirely away from his goal, isn't it? So, here is my question to all of you. Was the suggestion, originally the suggestion given by the friend, was right or wrong? All of you raise your hand. But now if you look at the whole bigger picture, how many of you say the suggestion given by the friend was right or wrong? How many of you say was not right? Intentions were good, but it did a disservice, not a service. So the actual question is, who is this friend? Who is this friend of a sadhu? Who is the friend of the sadhu? That is mind, who is always there with us, we really believe the mind is our friend. And mind is always there to give us some solution. Yes or no? The moment you are in a problem, there is some solution begins to come in your mind. Agreed? And unless you solve the problem, you cannot sit peacefully. Because मेरा जन्म ही इसलिए हुआ है सारी problems का solution ढूंढने के लिए. And we keep on going from one problem to another problem to another problem. In fact, while doing that, just like this sadhu moved from one problem to another problem, he ended up increasing his problems. Yes or no? So at times when we are looking for a solution, when we are following the voice of our mind, it's not actually solving the problems, it's intricating, it's making it whole complicated. That's what happened. So, who is a friend? Friend is none other than the mind. What's the moral of the story? Anyone? What's the moral of the story? Any lesson that you draw from here? Any quick thoughts? Any quick thoughts? उसको पहले ही शादी कर लेनी चाहिए थी, इतना संकट ही नहीं आता. Okay? Yes, Mother Sangeeta at the back. What would you like to say? Anything that comes to your mind? Any reflection from this whole incident that happened?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji and everyone. If Sadhu would have controlled his mind at that time, then he he would have not faced all these problems.
Okay, how many of you say if in case he would not have heard the advice of the mind in the first place, I believe he was far better off with his one possession. He could have tolerated little inconvenience, but could have continued to for his goal, isn't it? But for little convenience and comfort, that's how our mind tricks us. Mind is always there to find some way that we can have more comfort and convenience in our life, which ends up creating a larger inconvenience that happened in the case of a sadhu. So yes, therefore Lord Shri Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, mind can be a foe or a friend. Please repeat. Udharadatmanatmanam. So reciting Bhagavad Gita shlokas purifies one's mind and also makes us qualified to speak effectively. So don't shy. Recite loudly. I'm not saying that. Krishna says, Anudvega karam vakyam satyam priyam hitam chayat swadhyaya abhyasena chaiva vanmayan tapuchyate. So if you want to improve the quality of your speech, swadhyaya abhyasena chaiva. That's 17th chapter verse number 16 of Bhagavad Gita, 15th or 16th. Once again, udharadatmanatmanam natmanam avasadaya आत्मैव हि आत्मनो बन्धुर् आत्मैव रिपुरात्मनः. उद्धार करना means liberate करना. उद्धारत आत्मनात्मानो, one should liberate oneself with the help of the mind. Na atmanam avasadhyat, one should not degrade oneself with the help of the mind. Atmaiva hi atmano bandhur, mind, controlled mind is one's best friend. Atmaiva ripuratmana, uncontrolled mind is one's worst enemy. Bhagavad Gita, chapter number 6, verse number 5. So in the previous sessions, we have discussed about 6 different viruses that attacks our mind, which in Hindi or Sanskrit is called as Kama, Krodha, Lobha, Moha, Mad, Matsarya. So today, I'm not going to speak about that. I'm going to speak about how these 6 viruses leads to 3 diseases. What are those? Compare, complain, and criticize. To the degree we are affected by these 3 diseases, to the degree your experience of life will be pathetic. To that degree, you will find yourself frustrated, disheartened, demoralized, despondent, hopeless, whatever you want to call it. To the degree we are, our mind is affected by these 3 diseases: compare, complain, and criticize. Let's take a look at it. An example: compare Supernka. She got into the whole problem just because she compared herself with Mother Sita. She thought, oh, it's because of Mother Sita, because this beautiful lady, Ram Lakshman, is not paying heed to me, let me destroy Sita. What does compare does? Compare leads to this kind of a mentality, competitive mentality, where you want to show others down to make yourself, prove yourself that I'm better than others. That's what happened because this comparison mentality, a competitive mentality, Superkhan got her nose cut. That's how it destroys our life. Second, complain. Oh my goodness, what to speak about it. It is far much more widespread than COVID ever became. Who doesn't complain? And complain is one thing, even if you have a beautiful day, a person who has this chronic complaining problem, for him the best of the day would appear the worst of the day. Because that's how the person has created his or her mindset. For an example, Duryodhan, Rajasuya Yagya at Indraprastha was organized. Yudhishthira Maharaj collected taxes from all over the world except from Hastinapur. He said, well, Duryodhan is my own brother, so he is not subordinate to me, he is not supposed to pay taxes. Whereas everyone else gave taxes to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Everyone accepted Yudhishthira Maharaj's superiority and they put themselves as subordination to Yudhishthira Maharaj, not Duryodhan. And to not have any animosity in the heart of Duryodhan and to give him a feeling that how Yudhishthira Maharaj treats him as a brother, when the Rajasuya Yagya was there, at that point of time, Yudhishthira Maharaj made Duryodhan the in charge of receiving the gifts. He was in charge of the treasury. And now in that Yagya, Yudhishthira Maharaj received so much gifts, and that there was no space for any gifts to be kept. Because of which, Duryodhan had to send, whoever had brought some gifts, had to send them back with their gifts, saying that we have no space. At that point of time, Duryodhan saw so much opulence, he became far much more envious. He didn't saw the opportunity that he had where Yudhishthira Maharaj did not compete with him, compare with him, did not ask him to pay taxes. He allowed Duryodhan to rule his kingdom. He didn't see that. He didn't see the opportunity that Yudhishthira Maharaj gave to Duryodhana, but Duryodhana became so envious. He goes back to Dhritarashtra. And you know what he tells to Dhritarashtra? My dear father, being there attending the festival, I have never felt so poor. I feel I am like a beggar. And Dhritarashtra says, Duryodhana, what are you talking? You are the king of Hastinapur. Hastinapur is the richest kingdom in the whole world. The whole treasury is yours. And be assured, Yudhishthira Maharaj is never ever going to ask you to pay any taxes. Yudhishthira Maharaj will never compete with you. You have your kingdom, you have your wealth. Why are you complaining? And what did Duryodhana said? My dear father, you don't understand the state of my heart right now. You have a choice. Either I live or Yudhishthira lives. But both of us cannot live on the same planet. Can you imagine? For him to live on the same planet with Yudhishthira was not enough. Not in the same kingdom. What did Duryodhana had handed over to Yudhishthira Maharaj? A desert land called as Khandavan. There was nothing. Yudhishthira and the Pandavas, with all their effort, they made it into a great kingdom. Nothing taking from the Kauravas. Although the Hastinapur belonged to Yudhishthira Maharaj. Despite all this saying, Duryodhana's complaining attitude, finding faults, and this whole complaining mindset led to the war of Kurukshetra. Prior to that, led to the gambling match, where never ever in the history of mankind the insult wetted out to a lady in our culture had happened, which happened because of Duryodhana's attitude. Draupadi happened to be sister-in-law for Duryodhana. He dragged Draupadi right in the assembly, and you know the rest of the story, what happened. And the end result of this attitude, this fellow, despite sending Yudhishthira Maharaj and the Pandavas out in the forest for 12 plus 1, 13 years of exile, Yudhishthira Maharaj and Pandavas slept peacefully in the forest. But Duryodhana could not sleep peacefully even a single night. At the end of the 13 years, he died miserably at the end of the 18 days of war. That's what the complaining mindset does. The other disease is criticism. Again, is inherent of fault finding. It's a subject matter in itself, but this criticism arises because of envy. If you have envy in your heart, then this is called as, there are 4 kinds of envy. That's not my subject matter for today. But in 4 types of envy, one type of envy is called as subtle envy. What does subtle envy do? In subtle envy, you will not ever recognize you are envious. But your behavior would be of sarcastic comments, criticism. Even if you're passing a sarcastic comment to somebody, it's actually originating from envy. This is what Kapil Dev tells Mother Devhuti. Anyways, so we have a classic example of Shishupal. He was so envious of Lord Shri Krishna in this particular concluding ceremony of a Rajasi Yagya. Lord Shri Krishna long ago had given a promise to mother of Shishupal. Krishna was in relation to Shishupal's mother, that I would not kill him until he hits a century. Which means, until on a particular day, he blasphemed me 100 times, I will not kill him. On this particular ceremony, when Bhishma Pitama got up and he declared to the whole assembly that actually the greatest person in this whole assembly is no other than Lord Shri Krishna, Shishupal lost his temper. He said, in presence of us, the great kings, how can this Gwala, nobody knows who his mother and father is. Everyone is still debating Vasudeva, Devki, Nanda Baba, Yashoda. Nobody knows he's born in Gokul or he's born in the prison house of Kamsa. Everything about him is debatable. How can you declare him to be the greatest man? Bhishma, you are a fool. You don't know. Let me tell you about the nature of this person. And he went on criticizing Krishna 1, 2, 3, 4, 99 times. Finally, when he made the 100th time, Lord Shri Krishna took his Sudarshan Chakra, chopped off his head. Boom. What did Shishupal, what did Duryodhana, and what did Putana gained except for destruction? And this is how these 3 mindsets, which are born of the 6 viruses, destroy one's life. And it's needless to say, I feel and I believe in the society today, these 3 problems, compare, complain, and criticize, is quite widespread. How many of you agree? Please raise your hand. Is quite prevalent. Is quite prevalent. Now please understand, how can you really have a wholesome experience of life? It's not that if you are criticized, then you will feel sorry. But if you criticize, we are talking about those who found fault with others, who criticize, who compare and complain. Not about what happened to the others. Those who were doing, they destroyed the wellness, the wellness quotient of their life. They destroy their life in that sense. So that's the point here. So this is the reason why we are here talking about on the subject of mind management. I just wanted to give a little bit of introduction once again. what's the importance of understanding the mind, how it functions, and how to gain our control back on the mind. Therefore, Krishna says, if the mind is uncontrolled, mind is your greatest enemy. But as I made a point in the very first session, somehow, somewhere we begin to feel, because of lack of knowledge about these subject matters, we think this is my default nature. How many of you have that experience? Either you have said like this or you have heard from others, this is what I am, accept it or leave it. Please raise your hand. How many of you have had that experience? People have told you, or you have told, this is what I am, accept it or leave it. I cannot change. So this is a kind of a misunderstanding. We just wanted to bring that point to you. It's not like that. We all can change. And that's the whole subject matter of this series. So last time when we met, probably 2 weeks prior, because previous Saturday we had our annual cultural event. So we had discussed a topic called as from chaos to calm. So a quick recap of it. Lord Shri Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita 6th chapter verse number 6. Again the same quotation with which we started. For him who has conquered the mind is the best of the friend. One who has failed, the mind remains the worst of the enemy here. So in the previous session we talked largely or primarily on two concepts only. We are talking about mind management. So to manage anything we need to know about its nature and we need to have a control on it. So the very first point, the concept we talked about it last time was, what would happen if you would not do mind management? In other words, if you do not regain the control on your mind, what will happen to you? So Bhagavad Gita brings on a very interesting psychology and talks about this 8 steps of internal dialogue or 8 steps of destruction. That was the first concept we discussed last time, from calm to chaos. Everything seems to be going okay, but suddenly something happened within us and we end up making our life whole chaotic. We'll talk about it in a short while. Quick recap. And second point concept we discussed was how to manage our mind. Tips from Bhagavad Gita, that was the subject. Let's do a very quick recap. 8 steps of internal dialogue. In case those of you have not attended this session, you can go back here to the recording for a detailed description of this, what I'm going to do, a quick synopsis here. Lord Shri Krishna says, Bhagavad Gita, 2nd chapter, Hare Krishna, aage badho. Technical glitches. So, dhyayato vishayan pumsa sangatesu pajayate sanga sanjayate kamaha kamat krodho bijayate. So Krishna is saying, while contemplating on the sense objects, you develop attachment or attraction. From attraction comes attachment, and from attachment comes krodha. These are the 4 steps which are described. Let's take a quick case study this time. Imagine your child or you yourself are going for a final exam. Let's say tomorrow is your final exam. Everything seems to be going okay. And you're coming back from your school or from your college. You can put a case study of an interview, whatever it is. Something is very important and you need to come back and prepare and study for it. And you have all made your plan, you have concluded your day, and you know that when you go back, you're going to have a dinner at 7, 7:30, and 8 o'clock to 10, 11 o'clock or 12 o'clock, you're going to sit and prepare for it. All set. Everything is organized. And let's see how your mind makes it chaotic for you. And let's see if you can relate to it. So imagine right on the corner of the street, you see a big billboard saying that Bahubali Part 3, releasing today evening, the first day for show. Become the most fortunate fellow to get the opportunity to watch it. And imagine Bahubali happened to be your favorite movie. And you're looking at the billboard. Oh, aha, kitna majedar movie tha. And you get into this contemplation. And the more you think about it, the more you forget about what you were supposed to do. Yes or no? And the more you keep on thinking about it, after a while, you will say, hell with all the plan. कितना पढ़ाई करूँगा? थोड़ा ब्रेक की भी आवश्यकता है. थोड़ा मन अगर हल्का होगा, माइंड फ्रेश होगा, तो कल मुझे ढंग से याद आएगा. And that is how the process begins. So contemplation, look at that, doesn't look good. Attraction is nice, you can enjoy it. And then goes to obsession. Yes, I wanted, I'm going to watch this movie. And finally irritation. Oh, who can stop it? Whatever happens, I'm going to watch it. Then Krishna says, what happened next? This is the internal dialogue. We are going through with it. Then Krishna says, 2nd chapter, verse number 63. Please repeat after me loudly. Krodha bhavati sammoha samoha smriti vibramaha smriti brahmasad buddhinasho buddhinashat pranashyati So the following 4 steps, 5th, 6th, 7th, 8th, again a very quick recap. So now looking at that, your mind has become attracted to it and you are kind of resisting the other voice within you saying that no, you should not watch it. And you're becoming angry. What happens next? Delusion, which means you're confused. You do not need anyone's advice. Imagine a friend of yours says, hey, don't you remember you have an exam tomorrow you're supposed to prepare? And you look with the red hot eyes towards him. Who the hell are you to tell me this? I know what to do. In other words, at this point of time, whatever happens, you're not going to listen to anyone's good advice. Have you had that experience ever? How many of you had that experience? Just a few minutes before, everything seems to be so pleasant, so calm, so composed. And suddenly there is a big tornado hurricane within your mind. And the mind is like all over the place. Yes? Have I had that experience? This is delusion. Confused? I don't know. And the other voice within you saying, hey, what about your score? Don't you know the last time also you flunked? You really need to work for this particular subject matter. You can't do this. He says, the mind will say, no, don't worry. I have a good friend sitting next to me. I'll take his help during the exam. So any of those, all that excuses goes on here. Then you go to the next stage, oblivion, which means you forget what had happened with you last time and you're completely forgetful of that. And the mind says, I'm going to enjoy it. And stupefication is the second last stage. That's it. Stupefication means you're stumped. You are numb to any kind of experience. Now which means that's it. You're just about to purchase a ticket and enter picture hall. There is no more second voice here. There's only one voice. I want it, I'm going to have it. I want it, I'm going to have it. There is no other sound anymore. Imagine at this point of time, if anyone calls you, tells you anything, you will totally ignore that. How many of you have that experience at this stage? Where anyone at this point in time comes and tells you, Prabhu or mother or sister, brother, this is not good for you, you're supposed to do this. And you're like, You just like you act dumb and deaf. Nothing doing. I'm going to do it. How many of you had that experience? How many have realized this? And this is stupefication. Now this is happening very fast. But this is the beauty of the psychology Krishna describes in Bhagavad Gita. And finally, you are there watching the 3-hour Bahubali, and unfortunately it turns out to be a flop movie. You come start, अरे क्या करा मैंने 3 घंटे बर्बाद कर दिए, and then you cry further. Anyways, that's how it goes on. So in essence, this is the process of victimization, contemplation, thinking, feeling, willing, and these are the 8 steps which we discussed last time in more detail. So if we do not learn the art of controlling our mind, we end up getting controlled by the mind. And when we end up controlling by the mind, this is just a part of our routine life. So routine that is happening almost every day. And that's how people develop bad habits. Why is something called as a bad habit? Because it is bad. And it is not that the person who's engaged in bad habit doesn't know it is bad. But now he is helpless for it. Yes or no? That's the reason it is called as a bad habit. So that's what happens. So the second concept we discussed about how to manage the mind. So 2 things I had spoken about it. The first thing about managing the mind is to understand how the mind functions. Mind receives information and it gives information for the senses to act. So let's talk about mind being a receiving it acts as an operating system of the machine. So mind receives this input from eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch. These are called 5 knowledge acquiring senses. If you give a positive input, your mind develops a positive identification. You give a negative input, it develops a negative identification. Those of you present last time, remember the example of a horror movie? You went and saw a horror movie, and you come back, you're terrified. Just because you saw a horror movie, so reality has been created for you. So very important thing is to be cautious and careful what input you feed. That was the first point. However, Krishna says, Indriyanam hi charatam yanmano anuvidyate tadasya harati pragyam vayunavam ivambhasi. So we're talking about controlling our senses. If we can have a control of our eyes, ears, nose, tongue, touch, then we'll ensure that just like Gandhiji's famous quotation, Burama dekho, Burama suno, Buramat bolo, right? The 3 monkeys like that. Now to be able to do that, it again involves a lot of self-control. To not see the wrong things, not hear the wrong things, not speak the wrong things, it requires a lot of self-control. Therefore Krishna says here, As a strong wind sweeps away a boat on the water, even one of the roaming senses on which the mind focuses can carry away a man's intelligence. For example, eye is a weakness for fire moth. The firefly, it sees the burning fire, gushes towards it, and gets burnt alive there. The eyes become the weakness for a fire moth or the firefly, whatever you call it. Touch is a weak point for an elephant. Elephant is such a powerful animal, but a gentle touch of a female body, the male elephant loses all his temper. How a male elephant is captured? A female elephant is kept a little distance away, or less. What happens is female elephant is let loose to walk across the male elephant. A female elephant body touches the male elephant body, and he gets really, really tempted with that. And the female elephant is trained to walk a certain way and go across a ditch. And here you have a ditch covered with a dry bamboo. And the male elephant, now meditating on that female elephant, loses all sense of it, not knowing what is ahead or not, and he rushes towards the female elephant. And because there's a dried bamboo, there's a ditch covered with the dried bamboo, it breaks those dried bamboos and fall into the ditch. Now what you do, those who capture the elephant like this, they don't feed the elephant like this for next 3 days. The elephant is lying in a ditch like this for next 3 to 4 days. Because the elephant has not eaten anything. If any one of you know about the science of dealing with elephants, they eat tons of food every day. And for 3 to 4 days, they have not been given anything. What happens? All their senses become very weak. Now they're easily brought out, put into a cage, and driven to the zoo. And that big elephant, who happened to be the king of the jungle in the circus, now will sit on a small stool. Have you seen him? That's how he gets captured. That's about the touch. Similarly, about the sound. What is it? Who is the creature for sound? Deer. Deer is for the sound? Yeah, the sound. Deer is one of the creature. You play a nice flute sound, the deer gets captivated by it, and it comes running towards the hunter. Similarly, the tongue, fish. How do you catch a fish? You put a bait on the hook, throw it into the river, and fish thinks it's a food, gushes towards the hook, thinking it to be a bait, puts his tongue onto that. The tongue gets pierced, and the fish is brought out. Like this, for all these animals or creatures, their one senses were the weak point. There is a one creature for which all the 5 senses are the weak point. Do you happen to know any such creature, by the way? Any guess? Say it loudly, can't hear it. Human beings, pakka, right? Not Hindus, Muslims, Sikh, Isai. Human beings. I'm glad you're rising above this nationality and caste system and all that. We're talking more on the human level now. Yes, the human being. Few things we can quickly draw from here. When a person chases after the sense objects, it only brings misery. Elephants get captured, the fish gets captured, the deer gets captured, the fire moth, the firefly gets burnt alive. What is remaining, by the way? The eyes, ears, nose. No, the nose. The nose is for smelling, yeah. Which is the creature for smelling? Anyways, what human being you understood has a 5 problem. I missed the example for the nose. So like that. So my question is, now we are talking about controlling the mind. How can we control the mind? Make sure we give a positive input. But it's so difficult. Our senses are running hither and thither. How can we do it? Therefore I quoted this. So it is not so easy to manage the mind. If in case we think, okay, all right, I can just make sure what I see, what I hear, and that can work out. No, it doesn't work out. Therefore it is said, the world today, please repeat after me, the world today faces far greater and widespread threat from weapons of mass distractions than WMD, which refers to nuclear bombs. One of the scientists made a statement. I really liked it. You getting the point here? The world today faces a greater threat from Facebook, from WhatsApp, from Instagram, for whatever social media, because they causes mass distractions. In fact, everyone today is distracted. There cannot be anyone here who says they are good at focus. How many of you struggle with your focus? Let's say, how many of you have a problem of distractions? I believe all of us. What about me? I also get distracted. The moment you end up on social media, like, oh my goodness, time runs away. So it's like for monks, we don't allow social media only. It's a dangerous thing like that. So yeah, that's the point about it. Therefore, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, please repeat, Yada samharate chayam kurmo angani vasarvashaha indriyanendriyatebhyas tasya prajna pratishtita. Lord Shri Krishna says, one who is able to withdraw his senses from sense objects as the tortoise draws its limbs within the shell is firmly fixed in perfect consciousness. So you want to have a control on your mind. We need to have a control over senses so we know where to engage the senses, where not to engage the senses. Making sense? Just like on internet, one click can take you on the path of distraction. I mean to say one wrong click can take you on the path of distraction. So if that point of time we don't have this ability to withdraw our senses, just like Krishna says, like a tortoise, then we cannot. Now the point is, what does this mean? Somebody having the ability to withdraw the senses, somebody not having the ability to withdraw the senses. Question is, who controls the senses? Right now the senses are not in our control. For example, is there anyone here who decides when to feel hungry? When to feel thirsty? Is there anyone here? When you feel hungry, you feel hungry. And then you demand for food. When you're thirsty, you're thirsty. So if you see, the urges of the senses are not in our control. So we have to go a little bit of more deeper subject matter to understand how to gain control of the senses. Well, the more details of it I'll share in the next session, because that's the time we're going to talk about how the mind and intelligence interacts. But let's take a look at it. So far, when it comes to mind management, we have discussed two solutions. The first solution discussed in the very first two sessions was a case study, not a case study, I made it as a case study, but was a research work done by the neuroscientists from the Harvard and the MIT, if I'm correct. And they found out the deep impact of meditation. Those who regularly do meditation, they are far better in controlling their needs of the mind and sense. You remember that? And we drew 4 lessons for him. The meditation pacifies your mind, frees your mind from the clutter, etc., etc., energizes your mind. We draw the 4 things. Second solution, while managing the mind, we discussed in the third session, where we introduced the ABCD formula. This is what tips from Bhagavad Gita. Lord Shri Krishna says, how do you want to control your mind and senses successfully? Krishna says, follow ABCD formula. Anyone in the audience remember ABCD formula? What is that ABCD? Don't tell me A for apple, B for banana. Okay? The ABCD formula that we discussed here. Raise your hand if anyone. Okay. Let's hear from our teenager here.
Association, books,
What association?
Krishna consciousness.
Association of Saintly People. What does B stands for?
Books.
What books?
Books of Srila Prabhupada.
Wisdom literatures. C.
Chanting of the holy name.
Chanting, which means meditation. D.
Diet.
Diet. And we said to begin with, it should be a vegetarian diet. And once you understand the science of it, then it has to be a spiritual food. There is something called a spiritual food also, which is offered into a yajna, and then you honor it. That is called as prasadam, like that. So like this, Lord Shri Krishna talks about, if you want to do mind management, the meditation alone is not sufficient. You have to have, along with meditation, the association of saintly people. You have to have wisdom literatures, and you have to have diet. How many of you were present in our cultural festival that we had last Saturday? Raise your hand. I had spoken at length about, not length, I had given you some clue of how the food that we eat, affects our overall well-being. It's a great science, the food that we consume. Of course, we can't talk about everything here. So, A, B, C, D formula is a subject matter. We'll discuss more about the science behind it. We'll discuss in the next session. Let's take a look at the concept that I want to introduce today as part of our today's topic, that is building resilience. Strategies for bouncing back and regaining control of the mind. So in today's topic, I'm going to introduce one concept, but this is the final concept in dealing with controlling the mind. When we meet next time, there we're going to get into more science of how the mind and intelligence interacts. And then we'll give the science behind the ABCD formula that Krishna says. Krishna have given the philosophy. We'll talk about the science behind it next time. Let's take a look at it. Strategies for bouncing back and regaining control of the mind. Whatever happened has happened in the past, but now I'm not going to let it happen. So how do you fix it? That's a discussion for you today. So we have discussed in the past also, there is a 3-level model which Krishna introduces in Bhagavad Gita. There is a gross body, what you see. There is a subtle body made of a mind, intelligence, false ego, and there is soul. This is called as 3-level model. We also talked about how this gross body and the soul interacts. The soul, which is the root of the ROOT of consciousness, this consciousness interacts with the external body through the root of mind, ROUTE, through the root of the medium of mind. It is because of the presence of mind, the desires of the soul manifest in the external world through physical actions. So now the question arises, how does the body and mind interacts? Back in 1870, French scientist by the name of Descartes, he coined this body-mind problem. Fast forward 2023, this problem has not been resolved. You read Bhagavad Gita, 5,000 years ago this problem was resolved. But people don't want to read Bhagavad Gita. Why? Because we are advanced civilization. Now you can make a guess, advanced in foolishness or advanced in intelligence, which has been resolved long ago. Let's take a look at it. So body and mind, how does body and mind interact? Maybe I can draw a diagram here and then we'll take it ahead. So let's say this is the first box which indicates your body. This is the second box which indicates your subtle body, and this is the third box which indicates your soul. This is SOUL, mind, intelligence, and false ego. And this is your gross body. What we have discussed so far, what Bhagavad Gita talks about, let's take a look at it. So, mind, now how does the interaction happen? Interaction happens this way. So, soul is a place where all the desires are created through the medium of mind. It goes to the body, and the body reverts back to the mind intelligence, and the things happen. That functioning we'll see it later on. So, mind has 6 viruses which we have discussed, called as Kam, Krodh, Lobha, Moha, Mad, and Matsarya, which means envy. It has 3 functions known as thinking, feeling, and willing. And because of this 6 viruses, it leads to 3 diseases. Anyone remember what are the 3 diseases? Compare, complain, and the third one, criticize. We all can relate to it, right? This is a science that we're talking about, the 3 diseases. So now the question is being raised about this point. How does this interaction occurs? How does the body and mind interact? So body has is divided into 10 senses. First is called as working senses, and second is called as knowledge acquiring senses. It's all visible, right? Bear with my poor handwriting. So what are the knowledge acquiring senses? The eyes, ears, nose, tongue, and touch. Clear? Similarly, there are 5 working senses. The hands, legs, mouth, genital, and rectum. So all the actions that are performed is done through this 5 knowledge acquiring senses like this. Now the body, so we have discussed about 3 functions. Now the body has, these are the about senses. The body has 2 kinds of activities. We talked about working senses. Now the body performs two kind of activities. This is biology. I'll go to the science for it. So one is called as voluntary activities and others are called as involuntary activity, which means on which we have no control. And like this is how our body performs these activities. Any quick example of voluntary activities? Any quick example that you perform willfully? Just like if I ask you, raise your hand. So before you raise your hand, you will think, and if you wish to follow me, then you raise your hand, right? So raising your hand, let's say coming over here, is all voluntary. That's pretty easy to figure it out. Any activity which is being performed even right now by your activity, which is involuntary. Breathing. What else? Quick. What else involuntary is happening with you? The blinking of the eyes. What is happening involuntary? Blood circulation. What is happening involuntary with you? The beating of the heart. If ever goes on a tea break, which will call medically heart attack. If in case the heart ever has to go on a tea break or coffee break. There are so many activities which are happening involuntary. Right? So these are the things which are happening with the body. There are 10 kind of senses with which the body is what body is. Knowledge acquiring and working senses. So here my question is, now voluntary activity, the mind is involved. Because thinking, feeling and willing, let's do this way. All of you, please raise your hand. When I said, all of you raise your hand, the information went through your ears, went through your mind, you processed, you thought about it, and then of course that the later on subject, that it went to your intelligence, should I raise your hand or not? The intelligence said, better you raise your hand, otherwise you'll not get prasadam. So you decided to raise your hand. I'm just joking, something would have happened like that. You can keep your hand down. Now, keep on the process here. So, okay, thinking, then comes the feeling. Oh, that poor fellow have told me, let better do it, otherwise he'll feel awkward about it. So some emotions attached. Unless there is an emotional connect, you will not follow the person, isn't it? Then feeling gets involved into it, and then comes willing. And then you said, all right, I would raise my hand, and you all raise your hand. So all voluntary activities happen because the mind have decided to do it. Agreed? The beating of the heart, the functioning of the kidney and the lungs. Is your mind involved into it? Yes or no? Then who does it? That's where this question comes. How does the body and mind interact? Because your body is doing it, isn't it? Your body, you're breathing in, your eyes are blinking. Say you're driving a car. When you put your feet on the accelerator pedal, the car accelerates. The moment you put your feet on brake, the car stops, isn't it? So you are driving the vehicle. So now who is managing the body? I hope nobody is thinking मैं सैटरडे शाम को क्या कर रहा हूँ बैठ के अच्छा खासा IPL मैच देखता ये क्या बॉडी माइंड के चक्कर में फंसा हुआ हूँ मैं okay so how does mind and body interact? So let's raise a very first question. To whom does the body belongs? Who is the owner of the body? According to the law of any nation, I as an individual is claimed or told that I am the owner of the body. To give an example, if you have to ever go for any surgery or for any treatment in a hospital, before the doctor opens your belly or any part of the body, you have to sign a paper. And the paper says, the legal document says, I give the right to the doctor to perform a surgery. And he would not be held liable, etc., etc. Imagine while doctor is doing a surgery on a body and he finds in other part of the body just nearby, there is another glitch. And he needs to do a surgery there also. But because you had not signed a paper for that, he cannot do it. He will stitch you back, bring you out of anesthesia, and bring another piece of paper. Sir, we need to cut your body again. There was a problem 5 centimeter or 5 millimeter away from the place we operated. Do you give us permission? And then when you sign again, he will again cut open your body from maybe the same place or the place, and he'll again operate. Not only this, not only the law of the land, but our day-to-day experience teaches us, I am the owner of the body. If I decide to walk, I walk. I decide to stop, I stop. If I want to speak, I speak. Isn't it? But if I am the owner of the body, the question comes, if I am really the owner of the body, then shouldn't I be controlling the body? What do you mean by being an owner? Owner means then you have the control. But the point is, do you really have the control on your body? Let's take a look at it. According to the modern biology, our body functions what is called as based on nervous system. There are two types of nervous systems. One is called as somatic and second is called as autonomic. What is somatic? These are the voluntary actions. Speaking, raising hands, walking, these are called as somatic. What is autonomic? Which means they're happening without even you thinking about it. Forget about willing. What are those? Beating of the heart, pumping of blood. Other examples, just like lungs keep oxygenating, kidneys keeps filtering, etc., etc. So question comes, who is controlling all these functions? How can we call ourselves as a complete control of our body when we are not even aware about it? None of us know anything what's happening in the kidney, lungs, heart, nothing. So how can I claim myself to be the complete owner? I am the owner. But our day-to-day experience and the law of the land says, you are the controller. So according to modern science, I'm not quoting Bhagavad Gita here now, according to modern science, do you know how much percentage of control you have on your body? There is only 5% of activities that your body perform is done by you. 95% actions or activities of the body are autonomic actions. 95%. Now, for you to become an owner of the company, you have to have maximum percentage of shares. So let me ask it with that logic. Are you the owner of the body? If you are not the owner of the body, who is the owner of the body then? Who is the one performing this 95% actions? Who is performing the 95% actions? Well, you don't have an answer if you have not read Bhagavad Gita. You can think here and there, that's okay. But you can't have an answer for it. But it's a valid question. Is it a valid question? I am not saying this is what science says. Okay, you may say, nahi, aisa nahi hai. Koi baat nahi, main 5 ka 10% control kar lunga. I will gain more control on my body. You want to really dare to do that? Let me give an example what will happen if you dare to do that. So, this is called as Ondines curse syndrome, which is also known as, medically is known as congenital central hypoventilation syndrome. What does this actually means? It is a voluntary control of the respiratory system. If the control, only the control of respiratory system is given to you, which means now you decide, and then you decide. If this much control of the body is given to you, Ondine is the name of the scientist who discovered a syndrome. And what is a syndrome? A child was born where he had to choose to breathe in and out. And what did he call him? A curse syndrome. What did he call it? Not Bhagavad Gita. The medical professional, the doctor called it as a curse syndrome. Why it's a curse syndrome? This is what's going to happen to you if you have to voluntarily breathe in and breathe out. Now, can you ever fall asleep? Can you ever fall asleep if you have to yourself breathe in and breathe out? You cannot. The moment you fall asleep, you cannot breathe. There are so many operations that you cannot do. Imagine if you had to just control one aspect of your life, that breathe in and breathe out. The scientists themselves call it as a curse, not a blessing. Now you have to give a credit to the maker of this whole creation and the body, who decided to give only 5% control to us. And imagine with that 5% control what devastation we have brought to this world. To oneself and to the whole society, isn't it? Just with that 5% control. What control we have? We have just control on knowledge acquiring senses and working senses. We can, even knowledge acquiring senses, we don't have much control what we hear and that, because we are right now controlled by our mind and senses. Some control we have on working senses. The hands and the feet, the genitals and the rectum and the mouth. What to speak, not to speak, when to speak, to walk, to raise hands. These are some control we have. Even with that minuscule control, हर एक को लगता है रिश्ते में तुम्हारे बाप लगते नाम है शहंशाह. हर कोई सीना चौड़ा करके ऐसे सड़क पे चलता है जैसे बादशाह हो. हाँ है ना? This is why when you look from the perspective of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says, all are moodas, all rascals. पढ़े लिखे अनपढ़, मैं नहीं कह रहा हूँ, भगवान श्री कृष्ण कह रहे हैं. बाई चांस कंप्लेन करनी है तो कृष्णा के नाम पे करनी है, मेरे नाम पे मत करना. Krishna says all such rascals, these people are मूडास, foolish rascals. That's what Krishna says. कुछ ज्ञान नहीं है जीवन का कैसा चलता है, क्या कंट्रोल है, but they think I am the owner of it. A voluntary control of the respiratory system. Think about if now you have to control the function of the kidney, the heart, the liver, and what not. What will happen to you? So important questions. First, if you're not conscious, then how can we be the exclusive controller of body? Yes or no? Agree with this? अपने को पता भी नहीं है ऐसा कुछ होता है. First, second. Now, who determines the rate of respiration, rhythm of heart, temperature of the body? Who determines it? Who decides it? Third, who destroys the microbes in the body? How does it happen? Who decides your level of immunity and everything? So question comes, does our mind control the body? If our mind controls the body, then if you control the mind, which means you become the controller of the body. So what are the functions of the mind now? I know I've gotten into a little bit technicalities, but I hope you're able to capture it. You might need to hear it again just to, really grasp it fully. Now, mind has three functions: thinking, feeling, and willing. Let's go back again to the exercise. All of you, please raise your hands high up. Raise your hand high up. You heard me thinking, there was some feeling involved into it, and willing. You raised your hand. You decided it. Your mind decided it, and it resulted in an external action. Please keep your hand down. And now you decide to keep your hand down, you could put your hand down. So thinking, feeling, and willing. So, because I could raise my hand, I can put my hand down because I decide, so I'm the controller of the body? Yes or no? Which means, whatever I would will, my body should act? Yes or no? But does it always happen like this? Whatever you want, does your body cooperate with you like that? Yes or no? Let me give another example. If you think, no, it is my mind who decides. So my question is, can a paralyzed person walk if his mind wills to do so? Yes or no? Then how can you say the mind is the controller? The mind cannot be the controller. If you think that we give credit to the mind, that mind is my property, which means I instruct my mind and the mind wills. But if your mind is willing, then why not a paralyzed person is able to perform an action? Now, paralysis, the body, the part of the body which cannot move, is very much part of the body, connected with the body. Only thing is blood circulation is not happening there. The consciousness is missing there. That's a different subject matter. But despite the bodily part is connected to the body, yet that bodily part will not act. Now, question is, who decides for it not to act? So is that a fair enough conclusion I can draw here, if you all agree? Or we can open up for some question answer. There is a third party. Somebody is involved which controls the 95% actions in our body. And that is that particular, whoever that thing is operating us wholeheartedly. And we have been only provided with a 5% control on our body. So 5% decisions on how this body functions is within our control. 95% control is in someone else's control. And if 95% share or control is somebody else, then who is the owner of the body? You or that somebody else? The question is, who is that somebody else? Any thoughts? Are we doing okay? Are you able to see the science of Bhagavad Gita? I had quoted verses particularly today. We had been discussing science before, but I thought let's look at Bhagavad Gita today. How Bhagavad Gita is pure a science. We have made it a religious text. What's an answer? Let's take a look at an answer, what Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita. What is the answer for that? Are you ready? So who is that owner of that 95%? Who is that 95%, who does it? Krishna says, you have to repeat after me loudly. One of my favorite verses. Upadrashtanumanta cha. You need to will more strongly. Say it loudly. Upadrashtanumanta cha. Bharta bhokta mahishwara. Paramatmeti chapi ukto. Dehe asmin purusha paraha. Let me tell you word by word. Upadrashta. Upadrashta means drashti, overseer, who sees. Anumanta. Anumanta means the one who gives permission. There is somebody who is overseer of what's happening with you. There is somebody who gives permission. Upadrashta anumanta cha. Bharata bhokta Mahaishwara. Bharata bhokta controller, proprietor, enjoyer. Who is that? Said to be Mahaishwara. Said to be Mahaishwara. Ishwar means controller by the Sanskrit definition. Mahaishwara means the supreme controller. The question is, कौन है भाई? The third line says, Paramatmeti cha api ukto. Api ukto का मतलब, it is said. Who is that Mahaishwara? Paramatma. Where does Paramatma resides? Dehe asmin purusha paraha. He resides within the body of every living entity, said to be Paramatma. 15th chapter, verse number 15. This is 13th chapter, verse number 23. 15th chapter, verse number 15. Krishna says, Sarvasya chaham. Sarvasya chaham means Sarvasya, all. Aham means I. Sarvasya chaham. Hridi sannivishto. I, Hridi sannivishto. I reside in the heart of every living entity. Mataha. Mata means from me. Smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Smriti means remembrance. Jnanam means knowledge. Apohanam means forgetfulness. How many of you had that experience that you're about to enter an examination hall and you have a paper in your hand and you're memorizing one particular answer? And just before entering the hall, you're damn sure that you've memorized the answer very well. You keep that note away, you enter the examination hall, the paper is given to you, and the very first question is the same question for which you were memorizing the answer. And you say, "Arey, kya baat hai? Abhi rata tha." You pick a pen and you're about to write. Suddenly you forget. Nothing is coming. How many of you had that experience? Raise your hand. Sarvasya chaham hidi sannivishto mataha. From me, smritir jnanam apohanam cha. Move forward to 18th chapter, verse number 61, if I am correct. Ishvara sarva bhutanam. Oh, great. You can pick it up. Okay. I was not expecting that. Good, good. Ishvara sarva bhutanam. Hirdeshe Arjuna tishtati. Tishtati means situated. Ishvara sarva bhutanam. Arjuna tishtati. Hey Arjun, Ishvara, Paramatma, is situated Hirdeshe. Once again in 18th chapter, verse number 61 and 62, Krishna again says, like this, there are dozens of places. Actually, I should have included all those verses here. But dozens of places, Lord Shri Krishna says, I reside in the heart of every living entity as Paramatma. 13th chapter, this 13th chapter only, there Krishna speaks about there is something called as Kshetra, Kshetragya. Kshetra refers to the body, the field of action. Kshetragya, the knower of the field. And there Krishna said there are two knowers of the field. One is you and second is I. And I am the overseer. Overseer in the sense, I don't only see your desires, I see the desires of everyone in this creation. I reside as a Paramatma in the heart of every living entity. Now, to whom does the body belongs? To you or to the one who has a 95% share on you? That is Paramatma. And same Krishna in 15th chapter, verse number 7 says, Mama evamsa jiva loke jiva bhuta sanatanaha. Hey, you all are very smart, huh? Picking up Sanskrit so quickly. Manasashtani indriyani prakriti sthani karshati. Krishna says, Mamay vamsa jiva loka, mamay amsha, jiva loka, jiva bhuta sanatana. Every living entity is my amsha, is my part and parcel. And then in the 15th chapter, Lord Krishna says, how I am providing for your bodily maintenance. Krishna says, the light and the heat of the sun is I. The tej of the sun, of the moon and the fire comes from me. Krishna says the planets are rotating in their place because I have entered into the planet because of my aham ojasa. Because of my energy, the planets are situated in their orbits. I am the one, I am the fire of digestion, Jataragni. Because of me, you are able to digest the food. I provide you the water, I provide you the air, I provide you the ability to digest, I provide you the food, I provide you the rainwater. Krishna says, I provide you everything. But ये माई कला सोचता है मुझसे बड़ा कोई मालिक ही नहीं, मैं सबका मालिक हूँ. So that's another confusion. But anyways, there's a subject matter that goes on. So I will not go into the subject matter here. Probably what's the time? Because I have something else to do. Yeah. So this is, I just added fire before coming here. Man proposes, God disposes. I'll take this subject matter later on. We'll move ahead. Oh, why it's not going ahead? We'll come back to this subject matter later on. How does how does any actions happens? That will take it. Maybe next time I can begin our discussion from here. Man proposes and God disposes. How our certain desires get fulfilled and other desires do not get fulfilled is a very interesting subject matter. It's going to take another half an hour for me to read, so I'm not going to speak about this concept now. So we come to, oops, Gauranga. कहाँ पहुँच गए इतने पीछे? Hare Krishna. Here it is. So the point that I want to make here is not in this slide, it's the next slide. I'm just going to pause it here and then move forward. So the goal of mind management, what we are doing here. Now let me reveal you my true intention, what I'm trying to do here. I'm not trying to inculcate some skills and some methodologies, teach some methodologies to you by which you can control your mind and senses. Because now we just learned it is beyond us. We only have 5% control. Now any one of you can raise a question, Prabhu, why are you telling us that we can control our mind when you already told us that we have only barely 5% control on our actions? Then how can I really control my mind? Isn't it? But Krishna says, yes, you can. You can control. Now, this subject matter I'll speak about that how certain desire gets fulfilled, not get fulfilled. No, but that was a process. I'll come to it. So the main subject matter, the actual science of how do we regain control on our life, how do we again get those experiences for which the human form of life is designed, Krishna speaks about in this verse. The secret of controlling the mind and senses lies in this particular verse. It is only possible when we are favored by the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And what we need to do is to attract the grace of the Lord. Krishna says, please repeat after me. Manmana bhava mad bhakto madyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane priyosi me. Krishna says, always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage unto me, thus you will come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So the goal of ABCD, the goal of mind and sense control is to re-establish our relationship with the Supreme Father. When we reawaken that, then everything falls in its own place. Because the one who controls the 95% activities in our body, when we begin to attract the mercy and the favor of that person, obviously we'll get the ability to control our mind and senses. And to conclude with today's discussion on this very hope-giving message, some of us may feel, oh no, I am so useless, I don't have the ability, I give into the bad habits again and again, I really cannot do it. Krishna says, no, wait a second. Ananya chintayanto mam ye jana paryupasate tesham nityabhyuktanam Yogashemam vahamiham. But one who always worship me with exclusive devotion, meditating on my transcendental form, to them, Krishna says, Yogashemam vahamiham. I carry what they lack and I preserve what they have. Krishna is giving his guarantee. I will take care. Therefore, at the end of Bhagavad Gita, the last instruction of Krishna is Ma Suchaha. Arjuna, do not worry. Sarva dharman parityaja maam ekam sharana vaja aham tum sarva papebhyo mokshashami ma suchaha. Arjun, do not worry. I am there with you, I'll protect you. So to conclude for today's discussion, we talked about how does body and mind interacts, and we also spoke about who is the actual controller of this body. Our experiences, the law of the land may say that we are the control of the body, but in fact the science gives you the hint, only 5% control we have in our body. Unfortunately, the science has not yet been able to discover who is the control of the 95% of the body. But as you say, this science is revealed more than 5,000 years ago to us in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna says, I am that Updrashta, Anumantaja, Bharta Bhokta Maheshwara. And to conclude for this discussion for today, there's a very, very beautiful bhajan written by Sri Govindas Kavirajji. We'll sing that and we'll conclude, which puts whatever we have studied together in a form of a beautiful song. And we'll chant and then we conclude with that. Is that all right? Hare Krishna. Bhajahure mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare. Everyone.
Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare.
Bhajahure mana Shri Nanda Nandana Abhaya Charanara Vindare. Go. Sing. दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे
दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे
दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे
दुर्लभ मानव जन्म सत्संगे
तरहोई भव सिंधुरे.
तारो ही भव सिंधुरे
तरहि भव सिंधुरे तरहि भव सिंधुरे. सीता तपत वरिषाना इदिन जामिनी जागिरे.
सीता अतापक बात बरीशन इदिन जामिनी जागिरे.
सीता तपत वरिषाना इदिन जामिनी जागिरे.
सीता अतापत बारिश इन इदिन जामिनी जागिरे.
विफल से विनु कृपण दुर्जना
विफल से विनु कृपण दुर्जन
विफल से विनु कृपण दुर्जना
विफल से विनु कृपण दुर्जन
चपल सुखल बलागिरे.
चपल सुख लागिरे.
चपल सुखल बलागिरे.
चपल सुख लब लागिरे.
इधन यौवन पुत्र परिजन इत किया छे परतीति रे.
धन यौवन पुत्र परिजन इतयाक्षि परतीत.
धन यौवन पुत्र परिजन ईते कियाचे परातीति रे
ईधन यौवन पुत्र परिजन इति कियाछि परतीत रे
कमल दल जल जीवन तलमल
कमल दल जल जीवन तलमल
कमल दल जल जीवन तलमल
कमल दल जल जीवन टलमल
भजाओ हरि पदानीति रे
बजाओ हरि पद नीति रे
भजाओ हरि पदानीति रे
बजाओ हरि पद नीति रे
श्रवण कीर्तन स्मरण वंदन पाद सेवन दास्य 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 रे
पूजन सखी जन आत्मा निवेदन
पूजन सखी जन आत्मनिवेदन
पूजन सखी जन आत्मा निवेदन
पूजन सखी जन आत्मनिवेदन
गोविंद दासाभिलाष रे
गोविंद दास अभिलाष रे
गोविंद दास अभिलाष रे
गोविंद दास अभिलाष रे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे बोलिए
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे
हरे कृष्णा 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे
Together. Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Ram Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Shila Prabhupada. Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, 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 Jaya Jaya Prabhupada. Nithai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Bol Nithai Gaur Hari Bol, Nithai Gaur Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Hari Bol, Nithai Gaur Hari Bol. Shri Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Jagadguru Srila Prabhupada.
Jai.
Thank you all. Next week when we catch up, oh no, not next week. We are kind of out on our summer yatra. We are leaving next week for Badrinath. So we'll catch up back on the 4th of June. Is that correct, Shikhar? Right? I believe 4th of June is the next when we come back. So next time when we meet, we'll discuss the fifth topic of the series titled as Hijack. Today we discussed about the interaction between the body and mind. Next week when we catch up, we're going to discuss about the interaction between the mind and intelligence. And the subject matter is, Arjuna asked Krishna, Athakena prayukto yam papam charati purushaha anichannapi vashneya baladiva niyojitaha. So this will be the foundation verse when we meet next time, where Arjuna asks, My dear Lord, by what is one impelled to commit sinful activities, even unwillingly, as if engaged by force? In other words, I know this is wrong, or somehow I find some invisible force that pushes me to do that act. And after that, I regret, why did I do it? How many of you have that experience? So, your raise of hand is an approval that you're joining on the 4th of June. Because you want to know how to fight against it. Thank you all for your joining today evening. Hare Krishna.